Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to AdWeek, and I'm going to talk to you for 2 minutes on what is clearly an advert, and then for 8 minutes we're going to have some editorial, which kind of reflects what TV and radio does really well through regulation. And dare I say, the internet does really, really badly, because 75% of your website is ads, whether that's using data to load the page, or whether that is just the real estate being used to serve ads. The current state of affairs is terrible. So, here's your advert. And I'm sorry about this, because you've seen a load of tech vendors talking back to back to back. It must be quite painful. We all think you care about what we've got to say, but in fact, you're all kind of drifting off. And the worst thing about this is you're choosing to be here. This is your industry of choice. You work in advertising, and AdWeek matters to you. Now compare that to a website where we actually go to look at the content, the editorial, and we spend our entire time trying to ignore the ads. So just think how many of these ads are actually work out. There are maybe up to 5 videos auto-playing at any one time. There can be pop-ups, there can be rich media. All of this resulting in noise that we are actively trying to ignore. So how is that a good experience for you and your brand? So, we are Rezonence. What we believe in is one-on-one conversations where you engage directly with the consumer with their consent, and in doing so, you provide them free access to quality content, which is really important in this day and age. Because unfortunately, we can't pay for every single website, but somehow we need to fund quality journalism. 2 paragraphs into an article, we ask you to look at an advert and answer a quick question on that advert to confirm you were a human being, you saw the advert, and you understood the key brand or product message. It takes you 2 seconds to do, but gives you free access to that site for an entire week. And better than that, it actually helps sustain quality open access journalism. So with about 10 seconds left to go, I just want to point out how irrelevant viewability is as a metric. Because if you look at my slide, it has clearly shown all the key issues of the industry, but how many of you are actually paying attention to the slide or even to what it had to say? And that is effectively the problem advertisers have on websites. We go to look at content, we actively ignore ads. So instead of wasting real estate and annoying consumers, start to offer them a clear value exchange with proven human engagement. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do you know what that slide reminded me of? I don't know if you remember, 10 years ago or so, in cinemas, there was an ad that played. It was people playing basketball on a basketball court, and during the ad, a man dressed in a gorilla suit walked through.
Yes,
it's the same thing.
Exactly, and actually we've done that at presentations where we've turned up with a man in a gorilla suit. And it's amazing how we'll have someone slyly recording in the corner and you play it back to them at the end of the meeting. Visual blindness or situational blindness is a serious issue. We all know about it, but advertisers choose to ignore it because it's already hard enough trying to find a way to get an ad in front of a human, not a robot, and there are 30 different types of fraud, then get it fully on the screen. So after all of that effort, they almost give up trying to worry about whether someone looked or not.
Yeah, I think it's actually somewhat of a relief to be talking to you and listening to a company who kind of is addressing these problems head on and is like really understanding stuff does need to change, I think. And before we were talking on stage, you mentioned that there is, I think, a recognition amongst the industry as well. You had Keith Weed talking about how the industry needs to change. There are also a number of working groups going on as well. Why now?
You're spot on, Jack. It's huge at the moment. Every element of the supply chain is starting to identify the issues that we're having. Keith Weed at ISBA talked about advertising being a force for good. Let's stop retargeting everyone constantly, which only annoys consumers further. Let's give them a better experience. The IAB has just done a working group that I was part of on transparency. So a lot of ad tech vendors arbitrage, holding on to a lot of the money themselves. We need to start working out how more money can make it to the end journalists and publications, because ultimately they're providing a service that society requires. We've been going for now 4 years and shouting about this. And when we started, the ecosystem just wanted to pay less, and they were all about reducing the price and effective procurement. Now they're realizing that the damage they have done to websites by having so many ads has meant their money is just being frittered away. And so, yeah, everyone's getting excited. What worries me is it too late? And you just need to look at The Guardian, who's made hundreds of millions of pounds of losses over the last few years. Its readership, its print readership is now only 150,000 people. I mean, that's smaller than Wembley.
Yeah.
And they have 180 million digital readers showing how valuable their content is. But unfortunately, it doesn't pay to make good content anymore because consumers, at best, will probably pay for 2 digital subscriptions. I mean, that was some research by Deloitte. And they claim that that's probably going to be Prime, Netflix, Spotify. So we're not going to put the money into the editorial media that is required.
It's interesting because all types of experiments have been attempted, right? Like micropayments, for example, and then of course you have the subscription-based stuff as well. I assume that you are thinking that this is kind of the future and what stuff is going to look like.
I like micropayments. I don't think they're going to work. The problem is once something's been given for free for too long, people won't pay. And realistically, the amount someone will pay for a piece of content is far less than an advertiser will pay for that consumer's time and attention. I mean, to put this in context, there's a company called, it's going to go out my head though, but there's an app company doing micropayments owned by the New York Times, which charges 10p an article, which isn't very much. We charge 20p in engagement, and it ensures it's all free. So actually, we have a belief that with our product FreeWall, taking the best of the paywall and open access, that 1 ad a week on your favorite site, rather than any other ads, will make you £10.40 per year as a publisher. Compare that to today, where most free-to-read newspapers make 50p per reader per year.
So there are benefits either side.
Yeah, and that's what we need to take into account. The triangle of trust between consumers, advertisers, and publishers is firmly broken. Whether that's Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, whether it's fake views, fake influencers, the news is littered with how bad digital has got, and we all need to work together to clean this up. Hopefully our contrarian view of doing a clear value exchange for looking at an ad in turn for accessing free content is taken up by the whole market. We now work with most publishers in the UK. Most consumers are already engaging and excited by it. So it's now just a case of getting more and more advertisers excited about proven human engagement rather than the CPM advertising they've, dare I say, been throwing money away on because of viewability, because of fraud, because of situational blindness.
Mm-hmm. And I think the initial promise that programmatic had of this idea of one-to-one engagement at scale never quite got there. I think in some ways it has, in some ways it hasn't. You can argue either way, but that whole idea of ads paying for content, I think it's been a difficult one.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I agree entirely. Programmatic has not delivered the dream. It hasn't even delivered the dream for the advertisers. It's made the ecosystem incredibly complex, and the only real winners out of this are the walled gardens, where if you set up a Facebook campaign or a Google AdWords campaign, it's incredibly easy to do. I can do it, and I'm not even remotely technical. Whereas setting up a programmatic campaign, you almost need a degree in astrophysics to be able to do it, and therefore it's not a scalable solution because there aren't that many super smart people ready to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. So it worries me, and there's a lot of talk of in-housing, which again could clear up a lot of the mess, but there aren't enough people available to be in-housed and running programmatic campaigns. I mean, agencies find it hard enough to recruit for that role, so I don't know how every single brand is going to achieve it.
No, I like it. I think that notion of scaling back, the promise of like literally infinite scale, is like such it's a very refreshing thing to be hearing about.
The real thing there is, if we remember the housing market of London in the 2000s, the house prices were just skyrocketing for one simple reason. There was a lack of supply and a huge amount of demand. The problem with programmatic at the moment and all the auctions that exist and the fact that you can have up to 10 or 15 ads on any one page mean that as a buyer, I can look at your entire inventory, pick and choose what I want to buy, and actually pay the minimum amount because there's so much opportunity to buy. It is a buyer's market. we need to get back to valuing human beings, and there are a finite number of human beings. So that gives publishers the chance to have a finite amount of resource and start to push the price back up. So our idea of 1 ad a week feels a lot of agencies with dread, because they're saying, how will you have scale? I see 3/4 of the UK every day. I don't need to worry for scale. We just need to change our perception on what scale looks like. It's not buying 500 million impressions for a female teenage girl product when there are only a couple of million of those in the UK. It's more about one-to-one, clear consumer conversations. And dare I say, procurement has made this hard. It's all about driving the price down rather than driving the value up. And marketing needs to get back to realizing what it's good at, which is helping to sell product.
Absolutely. Well, a somewhat radically different way of doing things, and I wish you the best of luck. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, mate.